If we had been settled by the Spanish, say the Moors, rather than the British, then most of southern Australia certainly would have looked more like that than wheat sheep. We've had olives, grapevines, and sheep and wheat over vast areas. We've had solar passive housing right from the get-go. So it's interesting to think about the baggage we take with us. So the metaphor that I use for sustainability, I don't like triple bottom line, economics, environment and social. I much prefer the notion of a triple helix, if you think of the twin strands of DNA and add another one, of landscapes, lifestyles and livelihoods. Those are interwoven, interdependent strands. It's a richer than an accountancy metaphor where you have the three columns and then you get to the bottom of each column and then it's not quite clear what you do. And the point is that it gives a richer notion of economics, the idea of livelihoods and lifestyles. The way in which we lead our lives has a fundamental impact on the world around us. Our lifestyles are constrained by the landscapes in which we live to a degree, but they also impose a very large footprint on those landscapes. The notion of heterogeneity is implicit in that metaphor, and it's not agri-centric in terms of rural landscapes. And it gets me to the point where I think we need to develop an Australian landscape literacy that is grounded in the old geology on which we live, but also grounded in reality variable climate, faced with some underlying climate shifts. And in my view, we need to develop, as part of that literacy, an alphabet, a grammar and a canon. And at the moment, we probably have a few letters of the alphabet. We've got a long way to go. So this notion of landscapes, Simon Sharma says that the landscape is where nature meets culture. There are hardly, it's hard to go on the planet at the moment, and particularly if you take climate into account, there is nowhere on the planet left where human activities are not shaping the biophysical environment. So our landscapes are socially constructed. Landscapes are constructed by people. The choices we make, the decisions we take, the actions that we inflict on the world around us. And we need to get beyond what a friend of mine called Keith Bradley calls ecological apartheid. This notion that you have national parks over here where you do conservation, and then you have agriculture over here and suburbs over there where you do production or other economic activity. We need to think about how we conserve natural processes and ecosystem functions across whole landscapes, and how we sustain livelihoods across whole landscapes, and the interactions between what we do here and what happens elsewhere. This acronym you might see sneaking in NRM is Natural Resource Management. That means that natural resource management is not just about soils or water or biodiversity or energy. It's about people management. It's about managing the impacts of people, the aspirations and hopes and fears and desires and knowledge of people. So if you want to be influential in that domain of influencing the way in which we manage and consume natural resources, then you have to be in the business of understanding people's values and perceptions and aspirations and all the other things that shape their behaviour, individually and collectively. And it gets harder again because increasingly we have to take a more integrated approach across different issues. The one that I'm consumed with at the moment is the convergence and the intersections of climate, energy and water, which we still, if you look at any layer of government in Australia or anywhere else in the world for that matter, are looked at mainly in separate government departments using completely different academic disciplines with very poor connections between them. So we need analytical frameworks that can look at megajoules, megatons of CO2 equivalents and megalitres of water in an integrated way. We currently have about $60 billion worth of water infrastructure proposals sitting before various state governments and urban water authorities around Australia. Desalination schemes, pipelines from where there's water to where there's not, new dams, increasing the size of dam walls of existing dams. All of those have horrendous energy implications. All of those will impose an ongoing greenhouse footprint that's very significant. And yet we just look at them from a water point of view. Then we look at the energy side, and all around the world governments are taking land out of food production and putting it into biofuel production that has an enormous water footprint. The government of India has committed to meeting 10% of its total gasoline needs by 2020 from biofuels. The best estimates I've seen are that that will consume about 20% of the water that India currently uses for food production. So many hundreds of millions of people will starve as a result of meeting those increased energy needs. We've got to come up with smarter ways of looking at these things in a more integrated way. I come from a background of participatory approaches in which we engage the community, and I think those have gone out of fashion somewhat in over the last decade, and in my view they're going to have to come back into fashion, because we actually have to take the whole community with us on a program of learning our way through environmental change. Australia is at the sharp end of global climate change. We are one of the most affected countries. We are going to go into a period of sustained environmental change, where all sorts of records seem to get broken every other year. And so the whole community is going to have to learn its way through a very challenging period of environmental change. But that's not just about sort of political negotiation. It's common sense, because the vast majority of the knowledge we need to learn our way through is already out there in the community. It's not the unique province of politicians, senior bureaucrats, or high-level scientists or academics. Anytime someone talks about a sustainability issue, I like to unpack it a bit. Sustain what, for how long, over what area, for whose benefit, and how we're going to measure that. The moment you start getting into those questions, you understand that sustainability is a relative and a contextual term, not an absolute nirvana state that one reaches and then looks back to admire the view. So sustainable natural resource management, therefore, is inherently about behaviour change, and it's about behaviour change at a societal level, at a firm level, at an industry level, at a family level, at an individual level. And yet the economic and regulatory signals, even if we have a price on carbon and a national emissions trading scheme and so on, those signals remain weak and will continue to remain weak. And yet the responses need to be collective. So we need to work out ways of bringing whole communities into more sustainable systems and practices. And we need better ways of working through some of these difficult issues. And some of the techniques that have been tried, being led here from the ANU, John Drysek's group, deliberative fora, citizens' juries and so on. Other ways than our traditional stuff of local council elections, state government elections, parliamentary inquiries and so on. We need a richer menu of ways of helping communities to make difficult decisions. Steve Dovers of the Femis School has analysed the sort of the policy challenge in sustainability probably more rigorously and deeply than anyone else that I've found in the English-speaking world.